Hello, everyone. Good morning. We are at the first session of day 3 of the second annual Vacation Rental Data and Revenue Management Conference. I'm sitting here in Mississippi. I appreciate all of your texts and emails. I'm fine. Our team is fine. We just have no power. So I decided to drive until I found power, which is how I ended up in Mississippi. But Rebecca and Connie still don't. We don't have any internet connection. So there's going to be a delay on getting the videos up. But we did get all of day 1 videos up before we got hit. We lost power around midnight around on Tuesday night, and it was just a really long storm. So my prayers are with my friends and family on the Gulf Coast. It's still not good. It's bad. It's one of the worst ones we've had in a really long time. And anyway, so you guys, well, thank you for being here. Thank you for bearing with us through all of this. I know it hasn't been ideal. However, I heard the sessions went really well yesterday and that we made it through. And today I'm excited about this session in particular. I have been constantly confused about what happens when you change your pricing and then you actually want to leverage that pricing in the channels. So I'm going to introduce my good friend, Amber Carpenter, who she and I have worked together for over a decade. And back to when we were both at Instant Software when she sold Travel Storm to that company. So Amber, thank you for doing this. I'm excited to have you on as presenter. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Good morning, everyone. It's, obviously just such an odd time in our world. Keeps getting odder by the day. I'm in Bend, Oregon with all the smoke. So I'll do my best not to rasp or cough through the conference. But I'm super excited about this panel and this topic today. I'm just joined by an incredible group of individuals that are so experienced in this space. And so for those of you that don't know me, I'll go really quick. Known Amy for over a decade, been in the space almost 20 years now. I think this is my 20th year, so I'm aging myself a little bit. But 20 years in the space and really focused on technology, data, and marketing. And so how all those things come together, various forms from booking engines to CRMs, et cetera. So super excited. Doug, do you want to tell a little bit about yourself? And I think you have a few slides, Amy, that he kind of is going to use to tell his story.
Yeah, sure, that'd be great. All right. You guys see my screen? All right. So, hi, my name is Doug Truitt, and I am the head of revenue success for Reynolds United, channel manager. So prior to joining the team at Reynolds United, I was actually a customer of Reynolds United as the senior director of distribution for Stay Alfred, which was an upscale travel apartment company that operated in downtown urban locations in over 33 US markets with 2,800 units. This is a new role for Reynolds United, and we're aiming to combine channel management technology with individualized revenue optimization strategy for clients. And I've been in the travel space for over 20 years, predominantly in the hotel sphere for brands such as Red Lion, Pebble Beach Resorts, DoubleTree, Embassy Suites, and Disney. So very excited to be here, and thanks for having me. Amy, did you want me to go through most of my slides, or do you just want me to kind of pass off and we'll come back to that?
Let's come back to that. I think there's some great points, great slides for later on in the conversation. Braeden, do you want to go next?
Yeah, thank you. Really excited to be here, everybody. Bright and early, although the alternative conference has some advantages in that on one hand, I miss being able to hang out with everybody and stay up late, but I get to be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed for an 8 a.m. Conference, which probably wouldn't be the case if this was in person. But really grateful to be here. My name is Braeden Flaherty. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Bluetent. Bluetent is a full-service digital marketing agency focused on travel and hospitality, and especially the vacation rental industry. I've been with Bluetent a little over a decade, actually. Started out working in the support department. At this point, I've worked in virtually every department at Bluetent, currently heading up our product division. And so, our background in channel management was born out of our relationship with a particular software company that needed help getting connected to Airbnb. And our focus since then has been expanding our connection capabilities and layering service offerings on top of that.
Awesome, thank you. Alessandro, you're up next.
Yes, hi everyone. Nice to meet you, and thanks for having me today. So my name is Alessandro. I work at Booking.com. I am based in Amsterdam, in the Netherlands. That's the Booking.com headquarters. Been in the company for just over 7 years. Started in Italy. I'm originally Italian, and then moved here to Amsterdam around 5 years ago. My current role as senior product marketing manager within our homes and apartments division is basically made out of 3 main components. My role is to essentially listen to the market and see what is important for property managers and for technology provider, so that I can help inform our product teams, so the engineering teams that are developing our, the tools that you hopefully use on a daily basis, to make sure that what they do makes sense for the needs of the property managers and the market. And then, of course, one component of the role is also to be able to tell a story to you and explain how this product works, and hopefully give you some tips on how to make the most of them. So yeah, very happy to be here, and looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you. You know, we kind of debated where we wanted to start with this conversation, but Doug came out with some really incredible slides. Amy, if we can pop his back up again, and really just start the conversation with how do prices display on the channels, and then we'll kind of back into how do they get there. But if we could start with those slides, Doug, that would be awesome.
Awesome. All right, let's see, can everybody see my screen? Oh, here we go. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep, we're good.
All right, sounds good. Okay, so, in starting this off, kind of, in talking about pushing out pricing to channels, we all know it's kind of a longer topic, but I'm going to try and cover it as quickly as possible from a perspective of Rentals United as a channel manager. We do have 2 demo days set up through Amy, so please check out the program and register, as we'll give you tons more during those hours regarding Rentals United, specifically its platform and features. Rentals United is the only premium preferred partner of 4 major OTAs for 4 years in a row. So these accolades come from Booking.com, Expedia, TripAdvisor, and Vrbo. They speak to the Rentals United nurturing of these connections to make sure that every component is in compliance to the highest standard. Back in my role with Stay Alfred, we chose Rentals United because they specialize in APIs to channels and always had latest connections, meaning latest tools to push out inventory and be competitive. So maintaining an API is not an easy task, and keeping things updated, fresh, and making sure functionality is optimized are top priorities in earning these accolades. So I guess, first of all, it's really important to realize that not all channel manager connections are equal, which definitely impacts how pricing is displayed and pushed out there. So this is why you would want to consider partners that have premium preferred connections. So essentially, having a professional dedicated channel manager also means flexibility. So you can connect the PMS that you want, including your own. 3 main ways pricing is pushed. All are going to be through either a connectivity provider, direct connection, or the least commonly used is probably manually updated, but there are some smaller, property management companies or amounts of inventory that may choose to do that to some degree. So once a customer would be connected with Rentals United, it looks like this from an update perspective of your rates and availability. Whether you connect via manually, PMS partner, or an API integration, once your change in rates or availability hits Rentals United system, the update to the front side of your listings on the OTAs is going to be virtually instant. At Stay Alfred, I was always kind of a micro manager in some aspects of the connection, so I would actually check them. And we actually checked the flow, and it was about 45 seconds end to end from a pricing change on the dynamic system all the way through to the front side to the customer. So I'm going to show you a quick visual of how Booking.com, Expedia, Vrbo, and Airbnb display prices in different ways.
And Doug, just remember to take a breath and let Alessandro speak up when we get to the Booking.com slide.
Absolutely. I'll go through it and let Alessandro speak to it if you'd like to, because I'm sure he might want. So first off, for all these channels on this visual I gave, I selected downtown Nashville, and I selected a check-in date of September 21st and a checkout date of September 25th. Across each channel, and selected the first property that returned in the results. So it's not exactly the same property across all channels, it's just whatever was first. So I used an incognito window, so it didn't cache anything, just kind of tried to see what would be somewhat of an organic behavior. On Booking.com, you'll notice here that the price in the search results is $726. It does not specify to you exactly what that entails from this view, other than 4 nights and 2 adults. Once you click into the listing, you can scroll down to select a room, and here we see the same exact, $726 as was displayed in the search results. But below that shows excluded 15.25% tax, $2.50 city tax per night, $49 property service charge per stay, and a $75 cleaning fee. So after you select this room, only then at the checkout screen do you actually see the final price, as Booking.com does say, no surprises, final price of $990.92. So from the search results to the end at the time of converting, the total price increased $264.92. So before I move on to the next channel, I'll let Alessandro chime in there if you'd like to.
Yeah, and Alessandro, I have a question for you as you go back through this. And Doug, can you go back one slide?
Yeah.
So Alessandro, like this actually sleeps 4, but the pricing displays throughout as for 2 adults. And so can you kind of also, as you're going through this, walk us through kind of what the theory is on that? And if I really bring 4 people, do I get charged more? How does that work?
Yeah, that's actually a very good point and a very good question. So first of all, before I start discussing the specific, I just want to remind everyone that everything that you see on our platform has been thoroughly experimented in an A/B experiment, right? So the way, which basically means we do have competing variations on the platform available at the same time, and we experiment and we see which one is the one that is the most successful. Which on the other end, it also implies that what you see on our front end is what we know is going to be the most successful way of displaying things to customers. In the case of the occupancy, I think you have a very good observation there, because I would argue that occupancy is a very important component of pricing. So probably, I don't know what is happening on that property specifically, but my guess would be that that property doesn't have a setup of occupancy-based pricing. So they probably have a maximum occupancy of 4 people. Now, because you search for 2 people, and of course 2 people is lower than 4, then the system is thinking, well, this is still matching your search, and therefore is returning you a price that you might find interesting, but is showing it for 4 people because that's just the way the property was set up. So my assumption as a guest there would be, indeed, if I show up with 4 people, that's the price I'm going to pay, even though I searched for 2. Of course, there are other elements in this that might depend on the actual number of people, for example, city tax or other service costs, and that's where it gets a bit challenging. So my advice, not from a guest this time, but from a property management point of view, is do check your occupancy, do check how your occupancy is set up. And you might want to, put in a strategy that offers different prices for different number of people, so that these type of confusion are avoided on the front end.
So question for Doug and Braeden on this one, and Braeden, maybe you go first, but if my PMS doesn't allow pricing for occupancy, is there something I can do in the channel manager and your tools directly to help me overcome that and add that in, or is that just something that is tied back to the PMS?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for asking, because I think that is a key advantage of working with a top tier channel manager versus folks who opt to go with maybe a direct connection out of their software. Is in a lot of cases, it offers an opportunity to extend your capability maybe beyond what your software offers natively. And so certainly couldn't speak for Rentals United, but I know in our case, we do have the ability to apply occupancy-based pricing. And that includes if they're using, a derived pricing model for Booking.com, as well as LOS. And so those capabilities are there. We can also pass those through if your software does support it. So if you're setting occupancy-based pricing, that can be a straightforward pass-through. If it's something maybe you want to experiment with on a given channel to see how it increases your yield, how it affects your booking quality, Often channel management tools are an ideal way to do that because you can segment that out, choose a particular channel you want to experiment with that on or apply it to, and run it from there.
Great. Doug,
Yeah.
similar for you, or?
Yeah, I would say the same. So Rentals United has the ability to do length of stay discounts, promotions, as well as occupancy-based pricing. You can choose which property in your portfolio you want to apply that to, and say, okay, well, an extra $10 per night per guest above a certain threshold base. So it's definitely, I echo what Braeden said. It's an important thing to consider if you are choosing a channel manager, to consider that.
And Alessandro, I know that you have some slides. I don't know if you want to keep using Doug's or if you'd like to move over to your slides. But while we're digging into booking.com, and we'll come back to some of the other channels, but want to give you an opportunity while we're digging in here to kind of walk us through your view of it.
Sure. So let me see if I can do this.
So while you're pulling that up,
see.
there we go.
Can you see the screen, by the way? Still blank?
On my side.
It says loading. There you go.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you see my face. Because I do see like a cut version of the slide, so I'm not sure if you can see like the entire slide or just half of it.
It's definitely only a fraction of your slide for some reason. Everything got smaller once you shared, so I don't know if there's a resolution incompatibility between screens.
Let me try to restart 1 second and see what happens.
Alessandro, I'll give you a minute to, there we go. Now we see you.
Right. Okay, good. I just don't know what I did, by the way, but now it works. So that's good. Yeah, exactly. I still, after 6-7 months of working from home, I still haven't really figured out how to operate these systems. No, but what I wanted to show you, just a couple of quick slides, because when we were discussing before, also with Amy, in terms of pricing and what does pricing mean, I actually think we tend to immediately equate, of course, by definition, pricing with the actual price, right? But from a guest perspective, I think pricing is much more than that, much more than just the price that the guest is seeing. So I would argue that one of the first and most important thing from a pricing perspective is actually content. And this is super important for us at Booking, especially now that we know that there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of people traveling and wanting to really get a good idea of what is it that they are booking. It's super important that you have good pictures, good quality. I know it sounds very basic, right? But you'll be surprised. I was doing some searches today. You will find some crazy pictures, right? Even out of focus, bad resolution. That is really the step one, because we as a platform, we have everything on our on our platform, from the hotels to the apartments, and we want to showcase everything that's good about all of these properties with their individualities. But we can only do so as much as we have good content and we know also from an information perspective what is important in the different properties. Speaking of information, this is also something that we recently introduced that I wanted to call out again, just to make you think a bit bigger when it comes to pricing, other than just the actual price that the guest says. For example, these are two new things that we introduced following obviously the current epidemic of COVID-19. One is the opportunity for guests to filter entire homes and apartments for extra privacy and extra safety feeling. And then on the same sort of line of thoughts, we also have a new badge that is highlighting properties that are taking special health and safety measure in response to the current pandemic. Now, both of these two things we can display, but we can only use them if you, as a property manager, either directly or through your connection, tell us the relevant information, which is going to help us, display you in the correct category. So I just wanted to call these out because I think that these items also have an implication when it comes to pricing. Because maybe if you do offer extra value, that's where you can also adapt your pricing to these considerations. When it comes to actual pricing, I also have a screenshot from our page, which you will hopefully see now. And as I said before, just as a little side note, everything that you see on all of our pages is being experimented. So sometimes it might look odd to you, as it does to me also from time to time. But if it's there, it does mean that it's proven to be the best way to add value. So let's look at some of the elements that are displayed on the page, because I think there might be some questions when it comes to pricing display, as was the topic of the conversation. So the first thing you notice next to the property name are those squares, right? Those squares are our quality rating that we introduced last year. And this is basically like the equivalent of star rating for short-term rental properties. There's nothing a property manager or a property owner needs to do needs to do manually to opt into this. It's done automatically if, let's say, all the information in the property is complete. But again, because this is assigned by an algorithm that basically looks at the list of features available in a certain properties and compares them with properties in that area, that algorithm can only assign a good star rating or a true to life star rating if all the information is there correctly. So once again, please do make sure that all your information is there. Then, of course, there are the visibility. Yeah, sure.
Could I ask, so on those quality scores, are those referencing the actual quality score of what we see in the extranet from a property manager perspective when it says, like, hey, you're 80% or 90% or whatnot? Is it take that into consideration along with the other search result algorithms of like reviews and pricing performance and conversion behavior?
Yeah, very good question. It's actually, this is a machine learning algorithm that basically takes into account more than 400 features to actually calculate this this score. So it's quite complex to let's say to break down, but definitely the content score or the property page score is definitely one element that is part of that. But what I think is also interesting is that it's assigned also based on your local area. So for example, if you offer air conditioning, that could be very important in a certain tropical location, maybe not so important in I don't know, Northern Europe. So the same property, the same feature might determine a different outcome in terms of the quality rating based also on the property location.
That's very cool.
Okay, I'm just going to keep going. If you have questions, just feel free to jump in at any time. So the next call out that I wanted to make on this slide is around the Genius and Preferred program. Now, obviously, these are visibility boosting programs. You need to, as a property, be eligible in order to participate into these. But those are basically helping you in the case of the preferred program to stand out in the search results being put forward compared to other properties that are not part of the program. And in case of the Genius program, it's helping you stand out with a subset of our most loyal customers, which are the Genius customers. So these might not be available for all properties or for all properties in your portfolio, but if they are available, those are also something that you should take into consideration when you're trying to build a holistic picture around pricing. Before we move to the actual price, the last call out is on the cancellation side, because when you speak to revenue management, there is a lot of attention being paid, and rightfully so, to the dynamic pricing aspect of it. changing the prices and doing the deals and all these things, which are obviously very important. But you could argue that even offering a different cancellation policy or different prices for different length of stays, or maybe even different meal plans. I know maybe meal plans are not super common in the short-term rental industry, but actually lots of properties offer breakfast even in apartments and holiday homes. So even just building an offering which is putting together all these elements is helping you in your pricing strategy, in your revenue management. And these are all things that are very important, and we support basically with most of the connection with the partners that we have as well. And the free cancellation here, yeah.
I would think that during COVID, and I know for a lot of my clients, what you're saying with cancellation policy was actually more important than our rate. We actually could increase our rates in markets that had demand, but only if it wouldn't matter what the price was, we had to adopt a more flexible cancellation policy. So is that something that you saw kind of adopted more freely across the platform during COVID?
Yeah, that's exactly the point that I was trying to make. So the cancellation policy is something that you should consider as an integral part of your pricing strategy, because indeed, the price ultimately is a representation of the value of something, right? So if you are adding extra value by making it more flexible, more attractive to the guests in that sense, and we do know that flexibility is very important in these times, then of course it doesn't surprise me that you are able to also charge a bit more for that incremental value. So yeah, of course you need to again look at the whole picture, but it's definitely something that the flexibility is something definitely that we can recommend.
So Alessandro, did Booking.com make any adjustments to like the search rank algorithms in light of COVID-19 with regards to flexible cancellation policies? Meaning, did they make a shift and say we're going to start trying to prioritize flexible cancellation policies in the search results first as a part of the formula versus what it maybe was before?
Yeah, I generally don't know, in the sense that we do run a ton of experiments. So it's possible that we did do something like that. What I do know is that we added, for example, a filter in the search results that allow the user to search for flexible cancellation options. So, on the left-hand side, you have the filters. You can now select to only show free cancellations. I have to be honest, I'm not sure exactly the role on the ranking, but it's definitely something that is important, and user can search for it, filter for it.
I have one more question.
Amber, too.
Go ahead.
Sure.
Go ahead.
I was thinking that I've never noticed this occupancy piece before, but now that I'm looking at these two next to each other, it's a really interesting. You're right. If you're looking for people, that second property wouldn't have even come up, and they certainly sleep that many. That's interesting. Anyway, I just wanted to call that out.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's why I chose the screenshot also. I actually had another call out on the occupancy, then I removed it because I thought the slide was too busy, but I'm glad that you picked that up.
It's interesting, super interesting.
So one more question is, because I don't see you having a call out on this part, but I do notice in your second search results, there's a call out that it's managed by a private host, but on the top one, I don't see that it says specifically, professionally managed. So is there a label for professionally managed or only for private hosts?
Yeah, this is also something that we've experimented quite a lot in the past year or so in giving actually additional visibility to professionally managed properties. So it is something that we did experiment on, as I said. I agree, I don't see it. I also had that question, to be honest, when I pulled these search results. I do not have the answer, unfortunately, right now, but I would not, again, everything that we do is not to, let's say, put forward one particular category versus another. It's just to make sure that the results that we offer are the ones that are most encountering what the guests are looking for. I know, for example, that when it comes to professional property managers, last year we did some experiment in showcasing that a property is professionally managed and showing properties from the same portfolio also as part of that. Again, everything is very dynamic, right? So that's why I'm trying to invite you to always have a look at the page and try to stay up to date, because even myself, that I'm working directly in this team, right? Even I don't really know everything that is going on at all time. Again, just to give you an idea of the scale of our experimentation, at any given point, we have over 1,000 experiments that are live on our platform. So that's quite hard for anyone to keep track of.
Thank you.
So the last point was on the price itself. The famous or infamous strike-through price, because when I was chatting with Amy before, she asked me, how do I get that strike-through, right? And that's quite interesting, because that's not something that you really get. This is, again, something that is applied by the system, depending on what we know is the most efficient way of displaying the price in that particular moment. So when you are, for example, usually selling at a certain rate, and then you create a discount, it could be that then that price is shown as a strike-through. And if you go over the strike-through with your pointer, with your mouse, it will always explain you why you are seeing that strike-through. And there's a range of reason why that is shown this way. Something that is different is my next slide, hopefully if it goes, when you instead opt into an actual branded offer that we have. This, for example, is something that we just released. It is called a travel offer, which is a discount of 15% or more for stays between certain dates. Now, if you do opt into these kind of offers, then yes, you get the strike-through price, and you also get the tag. And then potentially you are also featured in something like a landing page, which you see at in the left of this slide. And by the way, I also specifically chose the property at the top. I don't know what property that is, but talking about pictures before, I don't think a mug is a great example of a first picture for a property, right? So I just wanted to, nothing against that particular property. Maybe they're doing a fantastic job, but I just wanted to call out once again that they are doing an offer, which is great, but they also have the first picture as a mug, which is not so great. So I think everything needs to be done, together as much as possible.
I don't know. I have to disagree with you, Alessandro. It's 7 a.m. where I'm at, so that looks really attractive to me, a cup of coffee right now.
It's looking pretty good.
Fair enough.
While we have you, Doug, so can we talk about this really quick from a channel management perspective? How do you help your clients promote on the channels? Like, do you have a promotions capability from both of your sides? And maybe Doug, you can start us, and then Braeden, if you could jump in.
Yeah, definitely. We actually have, as being one of those premium preferred connections with like Booking.com, we actually have the promo API that Booking.com has given out. So we actually have integrated to those promo APIs so that whether you have 10 properties or you have thousands of properties, the opportunity for you to not have to log into each individual listing inside of Booking.com and create an individual promotion. You can do that from one source right inside of Rentals United's platform for your properties. You can go spread it across a bunch of them, create them individually there, and not have to worry about going to a bunch of different, basically saving clicks on your fingers. Let's save people some carpal tunnel. But you can do those through Booking.com. We also have length of stay discounts and also just percentage discounts that you can do applied to certain date ranges and things for Airbnb, Vrbo, as well as other channels as well. So we actually provide those solutions in the connection, yeah.
And Braeden, if you can answer this part when you get to you as well. But Heather Ricker has a question here, and it's great. It says, is it correct that you have to build these tactical deals one property at a time, even with the API? Is that still somewhat difficult? Is it one unit at a time? Is it one building at a time? How does this work?
It's a room type or a property.
So it is individual or a room type.
Yeah, I mean, if you have one listing on Booking.com and you say, say you're Doug's Amazing Apartments or property, and you have a 1-bedroom apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment, a 3-bedroom apartment, or a couple of different homes in a community or something, and it's all under one listing, you could apply those promotions to each one of those room types individually. But if you did it without the Booking.com promo API, you'd actually have to go into each individual spot and actually create an individual one.
And Braeden, what about you? Can you kind of walk us through how promotions work on your end and whether or not it's with the property or unit type?
So same situation where it would be at the property, but with tools in Boost, which is our channel management solution. We do have a fair amount of effort put towards, bulk management, so that while the API and Booking.com may see that as a property specific feature, we're able to apply that in bulk and apply it to multiple properties, groups of properties, kind of based on an attribute that's sent by the software, manual selection, et cetera. Are there criteria like available nights? So we can slice and dice that property and apply those in bulk as we need to.
So it sounds like there is mechanisms in place. And Alessandro, from what you were saying, is sometimes your channel will pick it up if there's just a change from the PMS in pricing, or there are these tools from the channel managers that let them actually proactively push them. One thing is, just from a time standpoint, guys, Doug, can we go back to your slides? And Alessandro, I'd love for you to give input as we go along on how things might be different on Booking.com with these other channels. But I do want to show the audience kind of, this is how Booking.com does it. But to Alessandro's point, every channel actually does it slightly differently. And so you're going to have to really, this is a full-time role for a lot of companies that if you really want to be in channel management, you're in it or you're not. It's not just set it and forget it like George Foreman. So if we could maybe take a look at how, I think you have, is it Airbnb next, Doug?
Yeah, I've got Expedia, Vrbo, and Airbnb. And if you want, I can go through those quickly, and then we can kind of come back to each one if you want.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
We can ask, and everyone ask questions as we go along, but it is slightly different. And there's a great recap slide at the end.
Yeah. So next up is Expedia. You'll notice they show the average nightly rate or ADR that you will pay this property. Note the strike-through prices. There must be some sort of mod, or what they call mod, or members-only discount, or a promotion opportunity that the property has enabled themselves. Below the $142, you'll also notice that they tell you $737 for 4 nights with subtext below and stating that that includes taxes and fees. So they are giving you the all-in price for your searched dates and the results before going on to the listing. Once I click into the listing, then you can scroll down to make a room selection, and the same details are displayed from the search results. And now there is an added price details link. And after you click that, you can see that the breakdown of the taxes and fees for the all-in price is $737, which does match the from what we saw in the search results. So,
Doug, I think it's interesting that on Expedia as well, that cancellation policy was front and center throughout the entire search and booking process. Yeah. So again, going back to Alessandro's point, it's not just the price and the amount of cash, it's a lot of different attributes that are adding up to that value.
Yeah. And I would say universally among all the major OTAs, I think they've all done a really great job at trying to highlight those flexible cancellation policies and really make them prevalent, because right now customers are really, people are getting sick and tired of being inside their house, and so they want to go do something that they feel is safe, and they want to do something that they feel they can pivot and make their changes if they need to. So if everybody listening out there, go ahead, Amy.
Yeah, over the last couple of days, I've been hearing a lot about property attributes not being like pools and hot tubs or air conditioning. That there's so much more to a property attribute than that, including services, like some of the things that were brought up on day one were even mid-stay cleans being offered and things like that. But there are tons of attributes that can be merchandised throughout the property pages that I wasn't even aware of. I mean, I was still kind of stuck in attributes being like amenities.
Yeah.
And I would agree with that. And I also think to call out Booking.com specifically, they've done a really nice job in being responsive to that, and have a suite of amenities and attributes specific to guest concerns around COVID, and more detailed cleaning policies that can be shared. And there's clearly data that supports that that's effective in supporting conversion.
Yeah.
I would say absolutely from what I've seen, it's not just your rates, but the cancellation policy. You know, are you doing extra cleaning? Have things changed because of COVID? Are you allowing, you know, time between stays? But the other thing that I think I haven't seen either on direct websites or on any of the OTAs catch up, but is prevalent as just as much as those other two, are how does the Wi-Fi work? Is it free? Is it premium? Can I get on my Zoom calls if I come out there? So I feel like that's still really lagging. In fact, on a lot of the channels, you can just choose internet available. You can't even say Wi-Fi. I feel like that's one piece that still needs to catch up to what's going on.
I would say as somebody who travels.
I feel like everyone is very passionate about the Wi-Fi. Clearly, it's like Wi-Fi. Everyone is gonna, you know. Hold on.
My favorite way to communicate it that I've seen that I actually think is really effective is I've seen property managers who will take a screen cap of a speed test so that you can go beyond just Wi-Fi, go beyond just internet, show that you have high performance Wi-Fi if you have it. Take a screen cap of that speed test and put it in your photo gallery and describe it there.
Only if it doesn't show up as your first photo on a promotion on Booking.com.
right after the
That's what I was going to say.
So true.
The point that I was trying to make on the Wi-Fi is that actually you know, one of the slides that I didn't have the chance of showing, it was showing a tag which we just launched, which is called work friendly. So those are the properties that qualify for, let's see, being friendly for people that want to work from a different home or work from anywhere, as they say. And one of the features that, of course, is very important there is the Wi-Fi and the quality of the Wi-Fi. So most definitely, this is super important. And if you do offer Wi-Fi, I'm not.
What goes into that?
Yeah, there's a combination of things. As for example, indeed, the Wi-Fi, the fact that you do offer a desk or a space for people to work. There's some more, let's say, admin stuff like the ability to issue an invoice, or you know, some safety feature if you have some I don't know, smoke detector or some fire.
Awesome.
Yeah. Want me to go ahead and keep going with Vrbo?
Yeah, let's keep going.
All right. So Vrbo, being a part of the Expedia group, you know, has a similar display strategy as Expedia. So, you know, they show the average nightly rate for the length of stay.
Something like that. So it's a range of features. Again, if you go where you will find everything recaptured there. Can you still hear me, by the way? Because I got a prompt saying that I got a slow connection.
Yeah, you just came back.
Yeah.
This is the Wi-Fi playing on me. He knows that we are talking about
Your house would not get the badge.
Yeah, your house would not get the badge.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
Well, it's going to be exciting because at least from what I've heard, Doug and Braeden, do you guys know, are any of the other channels coming out with that badge? I haven't seen Vrbo say anything yet.
At least for Airbnb, they do offer a business traveler suite of amenities that when all of those amenities are checked, it will qualify into that, so that if somebody is looking for a property suitable for it, it's very similar criteria, you know, looking for a space, a workspace, a desk, Wi-Fi. There's a few other criteria as well, but essentially if you meet those minimum standards through the amenities that we're providing, you will earn that badge. You'll be returned in those search results.
Yeah. The only thing that I would say on that with Airbnb is it tends to be more of like a, you know, this is business travel ready, when I think in some aspects it's like we are now starting to get into an environment within travel where we are blending more towards the leisure part of our business travel than it is business travel anymore. So I think hearing what Alessandro said, I think that's great, because we have to be able to start bridging that gap for customers to drive demand and drive bookings, which is, hey, you know what? Before that bleisure thing, whatever it was called, business and leisure combined, now it's even more so combined. And it's like, hey, my job is 100% remote. Maybe I can go sit on the beach at a destination home on the Oregon coast or something with my family, while they're out playing, I'm working in the place or doing something. But it's more of a vacation for my family, whereas I'm the one person out of the 5 that's got to do some work, you know. But so it's blending that thing for me, I
You
think.
just described my entire life, even pre-COVID.
A new way of life. You got to lead the way. So yeah, I guess I'll continue on Vrbo here. Basically, very similar to Expedia. So they do show you the total that includes taxes and fees. After you click into the listing, you know, you get to the checkout window, and to the right we see that $819.22, which I'm assuming that Vrbo just wanted to round to the nearest dollar for the search result display. But after you click in the view details, Vrbo tells you the all-in price of $820.22. So one of the things I've noticed to be aware of with Vrbo specifically is that, you know, a lot of property managers will add on like damage deposits, so they'll add on other things. And you make sure you check and maybe talk with Vrbo or look at some FAQs, or if you have a large enough company that you have an actual dedicated rep, talk to them about what are the things that show up in the search display, because clearly it appears that a refundable damage deposit doesn't show up in the search results. So fortunately, this property only had $1 on it, but if they had a $500 damage deposit on there, it may not show up in the search results. And yes, I know it might pull from the total balance, but it might be something that you may not get back in part of a flexible cancellation policy type thing or something else. I have no idea. So just be aware of that, I would say.
This is also probably a good example of, I doubt anybody has $1 damage deposit. So just double checking that everything's feeding through appropriately. It would actually cost you more to charge a refundable dollar between the initial fee and the charge in the back end. So this is obviously probably not feeding right whatsoever.
Yeah, the payment provider is definitely going to be charging more than $1 just to make the transaction on a credit card. So next, obviously going to Airbnb, and Airbnb, you know, they're doing pretty well right now with a lot of search demand and some other things, but I do find this a little bit wonky. You know, you'll notice the display of $43 per night followed by a $260 total. But like Booking.com in the search results, no mention of really what that entails. However, they do have a $260 link that you can click on, and it does tell you a breakdown, which does add up to the $260 once you kind of factor in the special offer of 20% off. There was no strike-through for this display, but Airbnb does offer a strike-through pricing for certain discounts in the search display. So after you click into the listing and you're about to check out, you'll notice the price goes up to $281. So it's an increase of $21 from the previous total breakdown, and that is because they didn't include the occupancy taxes and fees in the search results. So a little bit discouraging there, because, you know, unlike Booking.com, which did a great job all the way at the time of checkout to actually see what you're paying, you know, they tried to portray their totals in the search results, but then you actually were increased at the end because of that. So that's one thing to consider there. And then lastly, I'll just bring up the summary tab.
Can we go back to that slide real quick, because I did want to make a point about Airbnb. And Braeden, maybe you can speak up about this too, but I believe the reason why there's no strike through on this one is this special offer is a boost. So a lot of people don't know that you can actually, when a property comes on, that they can flick a switch behind the scenes at Airbnb and do 20% off until you get 4 bookings. I believe it's 4. And so it just, that promotion will run until you hit your 4th booking, and it's a way, it boosts you in the search results and things like that. And it's only eligible on a brand new property to their system. So I think that that's why this one isn't a strike through, but if you actually change your prices or run a different promotion, that's when you get the strike through. So that's how you can kind of tell, which a consumer won't know the difference. It'll be weird a little bit to them that one's strike through and one's not. But a lot of people don't know how to take advantage, or that opportunity exists for brand new properties. Do you guys flick the switch for your customers? Because it's not even in the admin console, it's a hidden link, hidden URL.
It is a little
Let me interrupt really quickly while he's answering that question. In 10 minutes, the software session is going to start. These are breakout sessions. If you're using Barefoot, Expedia, Guesty, Track, or Streamline, you can go see how to change pricing in your software. However, this panel is going to continue this discussion. So if you're not using one of those softwares, you can stay on with us. If you are, go ahead and move over there. We are going to continue recording this, so you can always come back to this and listen to it later. Sorry to interrupt. There are a couple of questions in chat too, Amber. Just let me know when you want me to read those to you. I'm sorry, Braeden. Go ahead.
Oh, all good. I think just really quick to extend what Amber was touching on there. This does look like it's an example of that new hosting promotion. If you are bringing on new inventory, or if you are new to Airbnb, it's a really invaluable tool. You know, you do need to opt into that 20%, but we kind of talk about this concept of getting this flywheel going, and it's a really effective way to do that. Building up a review history, a successful reservation history is pretty critical to success on the platform. That's a big signal to the OTA that if you're new and you're getting booked, that you're probably going to continue to get booked. And so those first couple of weeks while you're live are especially critical. And for Airbnb, the new hosting promotion is one way to do it. I think in addition to that discount, which you're showing there, you'll get preferential treatment in the result set as well. So you can expect to be shown on top. And you really want to take advantage of that opportunity while you're up there and try and maintain that. But you're right that there are a couple other promotions available that do offer a little more clear merchandising of discounts. You know, Airbnb broadly refers to them as their low demand promotions, but we're talking about early bird and last minute discounts. They can also support length of stay discounts. And the merchandising for all of those is a little bit different, but especially over the last 6 to 12 months has really increased in kind of the quality of communication and clarity going out to the guests. Because I think, you know, taking a step back, Amber said this very early in the program, it's very true that our industry as a whole has some catching up to do to kind of traditional hospitality when it comes to merchandising and communicating discounts. You know, we've got a really long tail of software solutions and ways these things can get handled. And it's really in the last year that we've started to see some real effort on the part of the OTAs to drive opt-in of these merchandising and discount programs. So it's quickly improving. The timing of it is certainly challenging because we're seeing in a lot of cases customers who are experiencing, you know, in many markets, unprecedented demand. And I recognize that's not true across the board. We've got many customers who are still very negatively impacted by the pandemic, but for those who are back opened up, you know, we've certainly seen one of the strongest late summer reservation seasons that I've seen in my career. And so among our customer base, there's a little less willingness to discount. There's a little less requirement for it. If your goal is to maximize yield, you know, oftentimes right now, many of our customers have been able to raise pricing. But it's great to see the tool set catch up. It's great to have the opportunity, and you know, within any customer's inventory or in certain markets, these discounting and merchandising options are going to prove to be pretty valuable.
You know, one thing I would add about the Airbnb specific pricing piece on the special offer for a new listing, you know, Booking and Expedia have been doing it for a while with regards to the new tag that they put. And instead of eroding the price, they actually just will go ahead and give you that artificial lift in the search results to get you started and give you there. I almost feel like from my revenue management days that the perspective of constantly eroding rate only just nets lower rate, period. So you have to artificially figure out how to, okay, I know I'm going to list this on Airbnb and I want that extra push in the search results, and they're going to discount at 20%. Now I need to try and change my pricing on Airbnb to go above 20% to net neutral of what I'm pushing out in parity to other places. And I think that's something that it's great that Airbnb is doing it, but I would challenge Airbnb even if they were on this panel or anywhere, is provide the option for new properties to get artificial lift anyways, rather than eroding the rate and causing that new property to lose potential revenue essentially just for the sake of getting conversion for that channel.
So let's take a look at your matrix, which I think will spark some good conversations. And while we're doing that, Alessandro, when a property is new, does it get any sort of boost on your channel?
Yeah, so we do a couple of things for new properties. So as Doug was mentioning, we do have a tag, which during the years has got different names. I think right now it says something like just added, because we do know that it's obviously important when a property is starting and maybe they don't have any guest reviews. To get that initial boost is definitely something that is important. We did also experiment on a number of different things in the past years. For example, an experiment that we did last year that I thought was quite interesting was sharing the host review score across the whole portfolio. So for example, if you run a property management company and you have already a review score for some of the properties in your portfolio, and then you add a new one, instead of displaying that property without any review score, we would display the review score using the host review score from the other properties in your portfolio. I thought that was an interesting experiment. Of course, this year it's presented some challenging conditions also for the experimentation, but it's definitely an area where we are very interested in see how we can add value. And actually, it's very interesting for me to hear your feedback that this is important, because it's obviously valuable information to bring back to the teams as well.
Well, I think, you know, to what Braeden was saying, in some of those high demand markets that are showing this really big uptick, we're also seeing a very large uptick in new properties and new listings coming online. And so I think that's something that should be addressed by all the channels to really kind of, you know, it's obviously with a global pandemic that we've never been a part of and that has never impacted the travel as much as it has. It's interesting to see, you know, that people, we tend to focus on how bad things are and how things are going and how to triage those. But out of some certain markets, things are actually better than they were before. And I think there needs to be a consideration for those as well to try and help those do as best as possible for the whole industry, period, is my thought.
Yeah, I mean, I think OTAs clearly have to be paying attention to attrition and attracting new properties. You know, we were talking as we were preparing for this about how, you know, we really recommend customers be strategic about the channels they choose to distribute to, because even with the best channel management solutions, there's a little bit of effort required for each of those additional channels. You need to understand their policies, their idiosyncrasies. And so there's always that battle of the operational cost and the complexity of adding new channels to your mix. And so it's really on the platform, on the OTA, to be showing value and showing it quickly, because you know, more than ever, property managers are pretty impatient and are not going to put up with, you know, poor results if there's going to be, you know, that operational overhead or challenges or confusion. And so, yeah, I think the ability for them to show value quickly by rewarding new properties and getting them booked, hopefully kind of helps set those hooks and keep those properties in for the long term.
Definitely. So I guess
one more comment from Heather here about, she says, we don't seem to be using the term drip pricing, but this is really what we're talking about. How would you guys kind of respond to that? Do you feel that the way that the OTAs are displaying pricing aligns with that terminology?
You want to go first, Braeden?
Oh, I have to be honest, that's the first I've seen the term drip pricing. So I don't know if I'm betraying some ignorance here, or if I think we might just be using a different lexicon. But I have to say, I'm not familiar with drip pricing.
Yeah,
it's just the concept that as the guest sees a rate, but as you go through the booking process, the rate goes up. And so that is a hotel term, to be honest, because it's a really common conversation. It's this, you know, and legally there's conversations around that too. It varies across the globe.
I would say that if that is what we're talking about with the pricing going up, and in terms of leveraging, like, you know, property fee and cleaning fee and all these other additional fees, you know, that don't appear in the search results but then appear later on the checkout screen, like, and maybe Alessandro can chime in too, but I think the channels have all had their own legal woes over some of that kind of behavior over the years of travel. I know that in the States, there was a couple of companies that got sued, I think in Washington, D.C., because hotels were trying to basically add additional taxes to offset commission prices and costs, and they were putting up these resort fees and all these other different pieces. So, I mean, I wouldn't say that what we were talking about is drip pricing. I think what we're talking about is those are potentially tangible fees and taxes that have to be paid, because the one example I showed in Nashville, when there's a city tax plus a, you know, a regular tax, there are legislation in certain cities for short-term rentals where you have to collect a certain additional per night fee on top of the normal city tax in that specific district or region. So that's kind of where I would put. Maybe Alessandro has something to add to that too from the legal stuff.
I think from my point of view, so I'm not going to comment on the specific of the legal aspect of this, or the terminology of the drip pricing, which was also new to me, by the way. I think as a general principle, what we try to do at Booking, because again, as I was saying before, we offer all sorts of different properties on our platform that are obviously priced in all sorts of different ways. What we are aiming for is we are trying to present a price which is consistent and comparable as easily as possible from a guest perspective. So I would say that's our North Star, to make sure that the price that we display is the easiest to understand and the one that's most consistent from a guest point of view. And the actual implementation, I guess it depends, and I'm not sure I have the full details to comment on that.
And I would say as well, I think there's different causes and motivations for that situation. I think in some cases the channel might be doing this for merchandising purposes to show a low price and results to get somebody moving through a funnel. That certainly could be the case. I think there's some historical technological limitations that also contributed to this. You know, if we look at Vrbo and their recent rollout of their price consistency requirements, that really, the situation they were in, my impression, and I certainly couldn't speak for them, is that as they saw price changing while customers worked through the funnel, was less so a merchandising or marketing decision, and more so a reflection that a lot of connections to that platform couldn't accurately represent the price without some conditions being supplied. So how many users or how many guests, exact dates of the stay. And so, you know, they would have to make a real-time API call to get the true price. But I would say Airbnb, Vrbo have both made efforts over the last year to address that. You know, I think with Airbnb, there's some issues with the tax collection piece and how taxes can be put into the pricing and when that shows. They've made some enhancements to their API program to allow for better communication of taxes to ameliorate that. They're obviously experimenting with their fee structure as well, and you know, looking at moving a guest fee into being borne by the host. And so I do think that in some cases it's intentional, it's a marketing and merchandising strategy, and others it's a reflection of some technology limitations, and we can expect that to improve over the upcoming months and years here.
Totally agree.
I agree. I mean, that's the same challenges we have with our direct websites. We can't show total pricing on the search results in real time with a lot of different software platforms. It's just not there yet. So I totally agree. One thing I think is interesting when you look at this chart is that, to Alessandro's point, their line might be different when you do different searches because they're constantly experimenting. So this certainly is something dynamic that's constantly always changing. Teams are experimenting. And ultimately, this is all to drive conversion, right? Alessandro, it's not just what the clients want to see. It's ultimately these experiments are what is leading to the highest rate of conversion. If somebody sees a property and a price, what's getting them through the booking funnel the most successfully. And all of that is generally around online bookings versus phone bookings, because they're only capturing those conversion paths online, I'm assuming. But you know, one thing I'm also curious about is a lot of my clients have seen a shift in which channels are actually producing during COVID versus pre-COVID. And so Doug and Braeden and Alessandro, I'd love to hear kind of how the channel shift has changed. And Alessandro, for you, you know, what do you see as far as booking volumes and changes there due to COVID? But Braeden, maybe let's start with you and say, you know, have you seen a shift, especially in certain destinations, on what channels are working and which ones are not?
It would be an understatement to say yes. There's been some pretty seismic shifts in performance, and again, a lot of variability between markets. Yeah, we talked about this a little bit, and I actually did put together some stats and look back. Some things to know, you know, our connection is very targeted. We're connected to Airbnb, Booking.com, Google, and we're just now releasing Vrbo. And so for historical data, I limited it to our channels with the greatest volume over the last year. So I was looking at Airbnb and Booking.com. And so number one, the biggest improvement we're seeing across the board is direct. Our customers with their own direct booking websites have experienced the strongest increase as a whole than any OTA. Our customers who've invested in their direct booking presence, we've seen that really pay off. I'm seeing in aggregate across our entire platform, direct booking revenues since March 14th, which was a couple days after the basketball season was canceled and was really when stay-at-home orders started going into effect. So since March 14th, running to September 14th, we've seen revenue on direct channels up 86% year over year, a massive jump. But as we dive into channels, we are seeing some varying performance there. On Airbnb, we're seeing transactions up 40 to 45%, rental values up almost 60%. So we're also seeing either an increase in pricing or an increase in preference for maybe larger, more luxurious properties. You know, I think if we segment this by houses and condos and apartments, there seems to be data that supports that, you know, larger properties, houses, higher value transactions have increased. And that kind of stands to reason if you are doing a kind of the flexcation or bleisure stay, or if you're looking to maybe move out of an area currently covered in smoke and need to work somewhere else for an extended time, you might want that extra room. And so we're seeing some higher daily rates getting booked. As we compare that with Booking.com, still up, still significantly up, but you know, compared to the 40 to 45% to Airbnb, our customers are experiencing about a 30 to 35% lift on Booking.com over the last 6 months. So strong across the board, but a lot of variability, and the strongest rebound certainly on customers with a direct channel, and very likely a marketing campaign to kind of attract those guests and repeat visitors as well.
Doug, are you seeing something similar?
Yeah, I mean, you know, as far as the direct, you know, can't say too much on the direct because we don't do a ton of managing direct customers' websites for them. But we have seen a very big lift, I would say, in the vacation rental channels as a whole. I would say that the hotel channels have definitely not kind of risen to the occasion of people looking for the kind of surf and ski destination type places that are a little bit more remote and places that they can actually do things. You know, we actually have quite a plethora at Rentals United of different channels and different channel types. What we're noticing is a high amount of interest in things like anyplace.com, which is midterm channels, Go Lightly, members only, women only client type channels, Bidroom, which is members only, or Bring Fido, which we have, which is a pet room type of channel, or even At Ease, which is a military relocation channel, and also Furnished Finder, which kind of predominantly deals with a lot of medical stays. And those are the type of demands I think that we're seeing from the data, where people are really interested in understanding more niche kind of channels that really align with what's happening in this pandemic in this time. I mean, there's, like I said before, there's an aspect of more leisure than the business they do, and business is becoming a secondary thing of what they do when they go. So we are definitely seeing Airbnb up quite a bit year over year for us, for our customers across the platform. I can't get into specifics in the numbers, but we definitely are seeing Airbnb up, as well as Vrbo is doing pretty well. But Booking, Expedia, and a few others are showing down year over year. But if anybody follows the STAR kind of reports or weekly kind of things that go out, they have made some notes about how the hotel community is hurting to get things back in a demand aspect compared to the VR space. So I highly recommend people signing up for some of those STR weekly kind of updates and stuff they put out, because it's very, very informational and very good to see how market and rebound and stuff is happening.
So you both have mentioned, Braeden and Doug, you both have mentioned that you distribute on Google, but neither of you have said that you've had said anything about it, which says a lot. So tell us the truth. It's out there. It's getting a lot of traffic, but what's happening?
Yeah, go ahead. Doug. Okay.
Oh, sure.
Well, I would say that you know, Google has been great for us in the sense that it's no commission, it's no cost right now. So there is no point in anybody not considering that an option if they are connected with Rentals United, or would be looking to get connected to us, because Google Travel, it's free. And it's something that's not going to cost you from the channel to do. It gets more search demand. It just another set of eyeballs. I think, Braeden, you said that yesterday. Another set of eyeballs that basically can be on your product and somewhere to help you drive demand and bookings.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it is very low risk. I think compared to other OTAs, no commission, certainly nice, and it seems like it may remain that way for at least the short to midterm. I think the other piece is that, you know, it essentially performs as a direct booking, and so you don't introduce the concerns over alignment of policies or, you know, merchant of record considerations. So it can be strong in that regard. But absolutely, we need to respect that this is a very new channel. It is evolving daily. It is very much in its infancy, and the program as a whole certainly has some work to do to catch up to the sophistication and support that we see from the more established OTAs. But being that it's such an exceptional value right now, there's a lot of opportunity to be in while the stakes are relatively low and gain some traction on the platform. We are recommending our customers connect to it. And I think the pricing is really interesting on there compared to the other channels. Their requirements for communicating pricing are pretty significantly different from the other OTAs we've integrated with, in that we have to, proactively supply a tax inclusive full stay amount for basically every possible stay that could happen. So it's this huge matrix of pricing for every company that we're connected to. But what that does allow for is, I guess, the opposite of drip pricing, where we've got a prorated, they're going to be showing a prorated nightly rate, but it is off the true total. That's that number you're seeing there on the right. That's inclusive of taxes and fees, prorated over the stay per day. That's the display today. Now these things can change all the time. They also typically are able to show a rent total plus fees, as you see lower down there. And then as you get into the details page, you are able to kind of explode that into a full quote where you're seeing how that prorated nightly price was derived, breaking down rents, fees, taxes, et cetera. So, I think the rate communication is quite sophisticated, tied directly to availability, real-time checks at checkout, so there's like zero risk of double booking. There are some advantages. Traffic is growing. We're measuring the terms that are returning this interface. It's been really interesting to watch how it rolls out over new markets. That putting in a geographic market in the term vacation rentals will actually perform differently depending on where you are and what that market is that you've entered in there. And so some markets may return the vacation rental interface front and center. Some may not return it at all. And that's evolving, and it's very clear they're rolling this out in a strategic manner. And so if it is in your area, it's a great time to get in, and it's a great time to kind of learn the lessons of the platform before it becomes more competitive.
Yeah, I would agree.
Well, guys, I actually have a hard stop at 8:15, and so I think we're at a good point to start to wrap it up. Amy, what do you think?
Yeah, that's fine. I have a question I had two questions typed in about flexible cancellation policies. One said, a panelist yesterday said that many OTAs will boost a property that has had a cancellation in a way of assisting that property to get a replacement booking. Do any of you know if this is true?
Yeah, actually I do. I've seen it on Vrbo actually, and I've talked to a few folks at Vrbo, and they actually were doing it during a certain time frame when the initial pandemic started. I don't know if they're actually currently doing it right now, but basically, what they did is they sent out kind of like a survey to the guest. If they canceled their reservation and you gave them a full refund, they would basically be sent this survey and they'd fill it out and they'd say, well, were you given a full refund? How was it, the experience? And based on that survey, they would go and put essentially a tag or something on the backside for your listing and say, this listing actually responds well with COVID-19 situations and is flexible. So they actually gave them an artificial boost to help them by saying, you had a booking, it canceled, you refunded it, did the right thing. So now we're going to help you get more bookings, basically, is what they did.
Last question, really briefly. Curious to understand what your criteria is upon selecting a channel manager. Amber, these channel managers, it says they're offering, they all look a lot the same on paper. What do they need to look for?
So, wow, that's an entire topic on its own. So I would tell you, like with any other technology, the first thing you need to look for is the right partner, one that is responsive to you, one that is actually going to get to know your business. There are several different channel manager options, but their service levels are not equal. And so you can find that out by talking to their customers, their previous customers, looking at review sites. And one of the worst things that can happen to you is you have an issue or that comes up on a channel, like your prices aren't displaying right and nobody will return your call. It's a massive nightmare that I've been through with some of my clients and certain channel managers, etc. Secondly, there's different pricing models. So you have certain models where they're going to increase the commission per channel. So maybe they charge an extra 3% on every single transaction that comes through their channel or their channel manager. That can get expensive. So that's something that you should really run the model, run that business model and really look at what that's going to cost you. Because you can, yes, you can add a margin to all of your rates to help pay for that. But at some point, you're going to really inhibit your conversion if you continuously try to use margin in order to pay those costs. And then there are other channel managers out there that, like Rentals United and Braeden, I can't remember how your business model works, so I think it's similar, where you're paying a price per unit regardless of how many channels that you're on. What you have to be careful for is not all channel managers, and I will say this, whether it's they have the badge or not, certain channel managers perform better on certain channels, and that's based on how they have the data flowing into that channel. So certain channel managers work better on Booking.com. So you might, even if this is going to be a big part of your marketing, you might actually need 2 different channel managers. There are some portals like Marriott Home and Villas that you can only be with BookingPal for that one. So if you have luxury properties, that niche channel does perform really well. You know, Rentals United has Bring Fido. It has a lot of different niche channels, and it also has some of the big ones, and it performs really well. And it's one of those channel managers that's only, a price per unit per month. So from a cost, from an ROI perspective, it's always going to be really high. But again, you really have to pay attention to performance and make sure you have the right reporting on your side. It is worth it to change channel managers for certain channels if it's not performing. If you have a channel manager that's doing great on Vrbo and Airbnb for you, but you hardly ever get anything on Booking.com, talk to your Booking.com rep. And Alessandro, I don't know if you want to say anything here, but they can often tell you which channel managers or connections are performing best, or they can at least highly suggest one. And you should listen to them because they know which ones are performing better on their individual channels. But I cannot emphasize more that the relationship with your channel manager is almost as more important than your PMS relationship, because if it is performing and your rates are incorrect, you're going to eat it all. So you need someone who responds.
And I'd love to jump in for just a second. I think another important consideration there is also merchant of record and kind of ownership of the relationship you have with your guests. I think there's some full service offerings out there where you can be a little bit disconnected. And I think for some businesses that makes sense because it is that full service offering. If you don't have the staff to be doing that full-time channel management job, as Amber touched on earlier, that can be a solid option. I think in general, our customers really want to be in control. They want to know who their guests are. They want to answer those inquiries directly. To the degree possible, they want to be in control of the finances and being paid out and not have an intermediary there. So yeah, Bluetent and I believe Rentals United as well, both allow our customers to represent their brands directly and be in control of their pricing directly. One quick correction, the bulk of our pricing offering is actually commission-based, and it's charged to the property manager following the departure. So it's not tacked on, it's not modifying the price, although the property manager for channels where price parity is not a requirement has that ability to modify pricing to offset the commission if they choose to. So yeah, we are commission-based. Yeah. I think another piece is service. It is a big component. Software is only a small piece of it. Bluetent has an agency background, and so we have a nice blend of kind of that service offering with the technology tools. And lastly, I would say this is such a unique and a very long-tailed business in terms of all the different ways things can be priced and the rules you use in your software. And so talk to somebody else who's on your same PMS, talk to the channel manager, talk about them for the channel manager they're using, because if you're using LOS pricing in Expedia versus daily pricing in Expedia, you're going to have a pretty different experience depending on who your channel manager is, or you could. Fee handling can be different. So I think it really is important to do some due diligence and ask specific questions. Hey, this is how we structure our fees. This is how we structure our pricing in general. I want to make sure there's not going to be issues with this before you sign a contract. It is worth getting into some of those details.
One thing I want to echo off of what Amber said, that I'll stop talking after this, but I really like what you said.
I know you need to go. You can sign off. I got this. All right, Braeden. Thank you.
The last thing I was going to say is that what Amber said with regards to your relationship with a channel manager or your connection or your distribution strategies being important. I think it's so important to really hit on that hard, because You know, when I was at Stay Alfred, I was the revenue manager and started a revenue management department. And when we switched PMSs and we had to get into channel management and figure out how to do things, I quickly realized that revenue management, it doesn't matter if you set your rates at $100 or $500. If it's not connected to anything, it doesn't matter. You're not going to get your revenue management strategy. You're going to erode rate. You're going to figure things out. So we created a distribution department for that company. And I don't think whether you're big or small, it matters. You should have some person dedicated to giving distribution and connectivity the time and attention it deserves, because it really is the vehicle to launch your revenue management strategies and capture as much as you can. And each channel has its own behavior. It has its own guests. And at the end of the day, the top of the funnel starts with them. So they are their customers until you convert them and they're your customer. So optimize for each channel's behavior to make sure that you get the best customer for your product.
One thing, we have Cindy Estes Green coming up after the software session. I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with Calibri Labs. They do a lot of hotel research studies, a lot through direct bookings versus channel bookings and some of that stuff. One of the things I'm curious about, they talk a lot about the billboard effect and this whole idea that a property manager can actually get more direct bookings by listing on the channels based on the branding value of those channels. However, in our industry, the branding is getting stripped off of some of these channels. So as channel managers, do you guys, when you're working with channels, do you talk to them at all about branding the property manager or the company? How are there conversations? I mean, how are these decisions being made?
I think constantly, and I'm sure it's the same for Rentals United, in that because we're in this group of kind of premier preferred providers, we do have a great opportunity to provide feedback to the channels, and generally they're receptive to it. And I think, you know, a big role we like to take is being an advocate for our customers and for the industry, and helping channels that have a very different background understand, you know, the unique requirements of a professional vacation rental manager, whether it's, you know, helping Booking.com shift from largely traditional hospitality, or Airbnb shift from home sharing. There's a lot of lessons to be learned there. And I think a big one is the importance of brand. I think that there's going to be tension long-term over ownership of the guest. That's not going away. You know, we see evolution of communication tools and limitations being put there, in addition to, you know, different ways that they're handling the branding. You know, Bluetent certainly will continue to advocate for, you know, sharing the value of the billboard effect to those channels, because they're obviously going to convert a pretty significant number of those transactions. And it's worth it for them to provide that value, even if they are losing some through the effect, because there's this net lift. And the fact is, if customers weren't able to promote their own brands and have some opportunity to earn a lifetime guest, the channels become much less compelling, especially when we're seeing strong direct booking performance.
I would echo that. I think one of the things I focus on talking with our clients is, and I've got a screen up here, I don't know if you guys can see it, but, you know, on Booking.com, you know, there are some opportunities in the channel. I mean, down here at the bottom, you have the opportunity to do your branding. And I think it's crucial that the companies really leverage that from an account standpoint. You can put in your company info, mission statement. You can put in information about the property, neighborhood. You can even translate this information into a different language based on the location it's at. You can put up your logo as the photo. You can do this on, you know, in here, which really helps the billboard effect and branding. Is, you know, people, I think right now, in my opinion, people want more consistency and more confidence in their buying. And I think a lot of the larger OTAs are probably gathering up some of that demand, in the sense because you know that with those bigger OTAs, you're not going to have it be that your reservation gets canceled and you don't get your money back, because the OTAs will actually help back you up. I also think that, like, you know, on Vrbo, they do the same thing. They used to suppress your branding name in the title of the listing, but now you can put your branding name in the title. So put your branding name as the first thing in the title, followed by a bracket, and then put more descriptors about the local area or the things that you have there. I mean, really showcase yourself. Airbnb, you can put your host profile photo as your logo of your company or your brand. Do those things, because at the end of the day, I believe that OTAs are an extension of your marketing strategy. They are not yours. They are your marketing strategy. You don't have the SEO spend to do what they can do. So you get that customer to book with you, you provide them amazing experience. And if they want to book with you direct the next time, they're great. And I know that the OTAs are totally fine with that as well, because their power of marketing is great as well. So yeah, I would just say that the billboard effect is relevant, and it is something you just have to, again, spend the time and attention to really give distribution and what you're doing there the attention it deserves to optimize for your brand.
And I
And
think
that
just
brand
jumping
communication
in,
will vary by channel too. Oh, go ahead, Alessandro.
Yeah, go ahead. Alessandro.
just at the end, and by the way, I also need to leave in
Yeah, go
basically
ahead.
3 minutes. But I just wanted to add, well, first of all, thank you, Doug, for showing that page. Actually, I think it's a good example of where I was going. And I think, first of all, from a distribution perspective, I fully echo what has been said. I mean, I'm not here to say only list on booking.com and don't list on anyone else. I'm here to tell you, well, look at your distribution holistically and see what makes sense for you as a property manager, in which channel is working best for you, your guests in your different markets. From our point of view at Booking, this branding and sharing of the brand is a great example of how we can have a discussion and a conversation with the industry that starts from a valid feedback point, but then the implementation is something like what is on the screen right now, that again, it kind of fulfills and ticks the boxes for everyone, because it's adding the information for the guest that is helpful, is helping the property managers on their side with their branding. And it's from our perspective, we know that it's something useful that's going to boost the conversion of that page and help us perform better. So I think this is actually a great example of a win-win-win situation where we engage in the conversation with the industry. And of course, we are looking forward to continue to doing that in the future. The very last thing I wanted to say before, when we were talking about the data, and you said the performance of the different channels, and of course I cannot comment on the performance of the other channels, but a figure that we recently shared from a booking.com perspective is that in Q2 of this year, 40% of our new bookings actually came from non-hotel accommodation, which is a significant increase compared to the past. So even from that perspective, I think we can see some positive sides for the future.
One more quick question, yes or no? Are flexible cancellation policies here to stay? Alessandro?
Sorry, what was the question? I couldn't hear.
Yes.
Are flexible cancellation policies here to stay?
The flex, I'm genuinely struggling to hear you. Is the flexible cancellation policy here to stay? Is that the question?
Yes, yes.
Well, I guess so, but everything is everything can change. But we have no immediate plans as far as I know.
Certainly, we're seeing some movements on some channels to kind of better account for that. When we're seeing the ability to set rate plans tied to a cancellation policy. As we said, being able to offer maybe a flexible and inflexible offering at the same time while pricing those accordingly. We're seeing the tools catch up to that. I think consumer behavior has shifted massively, and it's going to be very difficult to go back here. It's going to be the expectation, and at minimum the next 2 years, and I would imagine this is going to be some scar tissue that hangs around for a while.
I would echo that and say that if you are a property manager and you don't have some form of a flexible option, you really should try to do that, because I would imagine that your conversion and your booking velocity has really gone down, and not down because of COVID-19 specifically, but because the market and the demand of the society in travel has shifted to wanting to have more flexibility. It used to be that way for corporate travel. Now it's, I think, for every travel. I don't think it's just corporate anymore.
And there are good options out there. I mean, we know how difficult it can be if you're in the Outer Banks, if you're in certain markets, how cancellations can be catastrophic to your bottom line and difficult to get back. I would encourage people to look into things like a master cancel insurance policy that can help protect you. Please do reach out about that. It's a great option to allow you the flexibility to provide a really flexible cancellation policy across your entire distribution portfolio while protecting yourself from maybe a cancellation that's made outside of your control. If a force majeure event happens, or if there's some overriding activity from an admin at a channel, those master cancel insurance products can really protect you in those instances. We're suggesting customers at least look into it because it will allow you the flexibility to be more flexible with your cancellation policies.
Alessandro, Braeden, Doug, I really appreciate your time on this. It's incredibly fascinating. We should do an entire magazine issue on this and do some follow-up soon. I really
Sure.
appreciate it. You guys have a great afternoon. We'll talk soon.
Thanks,
Thank you,
appreciate
everybody.
it.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thanks for having
us.
us.
Take care.
Stay safe, Amy.
Thank you.
Thank you.